Warm greeting. Myself, Dr. Sunil Natha Maske, working as a Dean and Professor in Dr. Vithalrao Vikhe Patil Foundation's Medical College and Hospital, Ahmednagar. Today, we are going to see a new topic, that is the giving feedback. This is very important topic which came across every day in official timing. Introduction. Giving feedback is also called as performance review. Feedback is meant to be the first step towards the change. No wonder why this process is so unnerving and fear provoking. This is exactly the wrong emotional environment in which to discuss performance, introduce suggestions for improvement, and talk about goals for the future. This is a shame because giving and receiving feedback is a key to engaging your people and keeping them on track. When this giving feedback and receiving feedback is done in right way with right intentions, it can lead to outstanding performance. Employees have to know what they are doing well or not so well for them to really hear your thoughts and suggestion on ways to improve, though that feedback has to be delivered carefully and frequently. Giving feedback is a skill, and like all skills, it requires a practice. We are continuously receiving and giving feedback in your daily routine life. In short, to define feedback, feedback is a formative assessment tool that uses descriptive, constructive, and non judgmental languages. There are various types of feedbacks. There are n number of feedbacks, but here we have collectively discussing few of them. First one is the direct feedback. This feedback tells someone what to do, even if you are phrasing it nicely. For example, I suggest that you make priorities clear to your team. Second is the contingency feedback. It gives future consequences. Like if you are keep interrupting people in meeting, they will stop cooperating with you. Third type is the attribution feedback. This feedback describes someone or their actions in terms of a quality or a label. For example, you are a good communicator or you are undisciplined. Fourth type is impact feedback. On the other hand, it informs the receiver about the effect their actions have had on other people's or on the organization. Impact feedback is important in performance reviews because it can shed lights on something you direct report never knew or thought about it. Fifth type is constructive feedback. It aims to help the recipient to grow and develop by identifying areas where they can improve and offering guidance on how to do so. Next is a very important type of feedback is the positive feedback. It highlights the employee's strength and achievements. Whereas negative feedback, it points out shortcomings or areas where individual or team has not met the expectations. It may be the uncomfortable, but it is very, very important. Now, formal feedback. It typically occurs within structured setting such as performance reviews and evaluation. This type of feedback is often documented and follows a specific format or a procedure. It can provide a clear and objective assessment of an individual performance, allowing for targeted improvements and growth. Whereas informal feedback is a casual and spontaneous during day-to-day interactions. This type of feedback can be valuable for maintaining open lines of communication and addressing minor issues before they escalate. Next type is appreciation feedback. This focuses on expressing gratitude and acknowledging the efforts and contribution of others. It can foster a positive work environment and strengthen relationship between the colleagues. Guidance feedback. This feedback provides direction and advice to help individuals navigate challenges or improve their performance. Next is the encouragement feedback. This aims to motivate and inspire individuals to continue working toward their goals despite setbacks or difficulties. Forward feedback, also known as feed forward. This type of feedback focuses on future actions and improvements rather than dwelling on past mistakes or shortcomings. Last is the coaching feedback. Coaching feedback involves providing guidance, support, and encouragement to help individuals to develop their skills and reach to their full potential. There are certain feedback methods, the way how the feedback is given. First one is the oral feedback, like face-to-face conversation, phone call, or video conferences, which allow for immediate feedback and clarification. After oral, second one is the written feedback through emails, reports, or written evaluation reports, which is more formal and structured way of giving the feedback. Informal feedback through casual conversation, it is done between the colleagues or the teams. Formal feedback is through the scheduled meetings, performance reviews, and through the specific sessions. Next is the descriptive feedback. It focuses on specific actions or behaviors which helps the recipient understand the context and importance of their actions. Evaluative feedback is assessing an individual or team's overall performance or effectiveness, which provide broader perspective on their strengths and areas of improvement. Peer feedback, colleagues at the same level can offer unique insights and support for one another's growth and development. And last method is self-assessment. This is very important, which reflects on one's performance and identifies areas which can be improved to foster personal growth and accountability. Now, the characteristic of effective feedback. First character is it should be specific and it should not be general. It should focus on a behavior and it should consider the needs of feedback receiver. That means feedback should be provided with an intention to help and not to hurt the others. Next characteristic is feedback should be solicited. It is useful when the recipient has framed the kind of questions that the people who are observing can respond to it. Then feedback should be meant for sharing the information. Feedback should be well timed. Immediate feedback on any matter is most useful. And last characteristic is amount of information the receiver can use. The information which is given at the type of feedback should be focused and it should not be generalized. Now we'll see the two parts, giving the feedback and receiving the feedback. Second, we discuss is the receiving the feedback effectively. When you are receiving the feedback from your subordinate or a senior or anyone, you should listen the feedback which is given very carefully. There should not be interruption. Here the person should listen carefully what the person is giving the feedback. You can absorb more information if you are concentrating on listening and understanding rather than being defensive and focusing on your response. Second point, while receiving the feedback, is be aware of your response. Your body language and tone of voice often speaks louder than words. Try to avoid putting up barriers. If you look distracted or bored, that sends a negative message as well. Attentiveness, on the other hand, indicate that you value what someone has to say and puts both of you at ease. While receiving feedback, you should be in open mind. You should understand the message which is given by the person who gives the feedback. It should reflect and decide what to do. That means assess the value of feedback, the consequences of using it or ignoring it, and then decide what to do because of it. Your response is your choice. If you disagree with the feedback, consider asking for a second opinion from someone else. And very important last step in receiving the feedback, there are many ways to follow up on feedback. Sometimes your follow-up will simply involve implementing the suggestions given to you. In other situations, you might want to set up another meeting to discuss the feedback or resubmit the revised work. Then, after receiving, giving the effective feedback. This is very important thing for the officers. Here, you have to prioritize your ideas, limit your feedback to the most important issues, consider the feedback's potential value to the receiver and how you should respond. Could you act on the feedback? Concentrate on the behavior and not on the person while giving the feedback. You have to balance the content while putting the things in the feedback. You should be specific and realistic. Very important thing is that feedback should be given in a timely manner, and you have to offer continuous support. Feedback should be continuous process and it is not just a one-time event. It is also stated that while giving the negative feedback, you should use the sandwich technique. In between the two good comments, you have to keep the negative comments. So your aim of improvement of your organization will be solved. There are certain tools for effective feedback. Out of them, two are feedback matrix and Losada ratio. Feedback matrix is a tool that encourages you to examine both positive and negative aspect of feedback. Here it is divided into four types. That is the positive and expected feedback. That is very important one. Negative and expected feedback, positive and unexpected feedback, and last one is negative and unexpected feedback. This last one is very difficult to hear and understand. That is a negative unexpected. Second tool is Losada ratio. This ratio, also known as positivity negativity ratio, was identified by psychologist Marcel Losada in 1999. The ratio represents the number of positive interactions with an individual divided by the number of negative interactions measured over a period of time. For example, if you made 5 positive comments for every negative comment you made when while talking with a team member, your ratio is 5:1. Effective feedback in 5 steps. First, focus on your delivery. Set the recipient upon the success. Come from the empathetic place. Share your opinion and be specific and actionable. There are certain points regarding the best way to give the feedback. First, stay focused on the problem rather than the person. Remain objective but understanding and empathetic. Offer meaningful and actionable suggestion on how to improve. Give clear examples. Offer him support. Point out what they are doing well. Ask for their opinion on the situation. And last, very important, is the remain open to the conversation. There are certain common feedback mistakes when you are delivering it. The feedback judges individuals and not actions. The feedback is too vague, too lengthy. The feedback speaks for others. While giving the feedback, if you mix the third party's name, it refuses or confuses the recipient. Negative feedback gets sandwiched between positive messages. The feedback is exaggerated and never use the word like always and never. It puts the people on the defensive because there is usually that one time. The feedback psychoanalyzes the motive behind the behavior. Next mistake is the feedback goes on too long. Know when to stop. People need time to process information they are received. The feedback contains an implied threat. The feedback uses inappropriate humor. And last common mistake, the feedback is a question, not a statement. Raising feedback as a question is too indirect to be effective. Then is the follow-up. I have already mentioned that feedback is not a one-time procedure, it is a continuous procedure. So it requires the follow-up. The whole purpose of feedback is to improve the performance. Feedback is a two-way street. You need to know how to give it effectively and how to receive it constructively. When you make a conscious choice to give and receive feedback on a regular basis, you demonstrate that it is a powerful means of a personal development and positive image. When done properly, feedbacks need not be agonizing, demoralizing, or daunting. And the more practice you get, the better you will become at it. As I have told, it is a skill. It may never be your favorite means of communicating with your team members, co-workers, or your boss, but it does have the potential to make your workplace a much productive and harmonious place to be. Lastly, the important points in the giving and receiving the feedback is communication is of no use without feedback. It facilitates the evaluation of the effectiveness of the message. It makes communication purposeful. Feedback keeps up communication process, the basis for checking the effective of the communication. Feedback maintains an open communication climate. And last sentence is very, very important in giving and receiving the feedback. It is the basis for future planning as it helps in deciding the next step that a person can to achieve this, to set the goal of the organization. Thank you.